Yeah, awesome. Let's start, John.
Yes. Let's do it. All right. Go.
Sound great?
Welcome, guys and girls. Thank you for coming here. We decided to create one panel session on the topic of product creation, especially now in AI world where you can do stuff much more efficiently. You can do stuff with less engineering power, more creatively. We are living in funny economic times as well, so this economic component to build faster, to build with less resources is also interesting. Our clients who are living here in Austin from the companies that we are working with will join me, David and Joe. Yeah, I want to give you a chance maybe to present yourself and companies that you are working for or founded. David, you can start.
Yes. This thing on? You can do it.
Yeah, I want to
Just press the one.
I want to just say sorry to people who are listening to us via YouTube for 30 minutes late. We had here fire alarm as well, but we waited a bit for people to gather to start. David, go ahead.
All right, so hey, nice to meet everyone. My name is David G. Ewing, and I am the CEO of two companies right now. So for the past 20 years, I've had a company called Motive, and Motive's job is to make customer experiences that drive customer lifetime value for Fortune 500 companies, and we do that with technology and systems through Oracle. But I don't think that is the most relevant thing today because that business has been around for 20 years. It's very well established, and it's performing at a pretty nice and aggressive clip, and it's already has the 5,000 list. But 2 years ago, a major portion of our business was to implement some technology from Oracle for a product called Oracle Content Lion. And Oracle just decided to exit space, which for a large company, they can do that sometimes. But they left in the wake of that exit a very large install base and a 2-year cliff for someone to race to replace their product, which is exactly what we did. So we started a second company, and that's the one that I think is more relevant. It's called Content Lion. I don't know how you're gonna remember that, but Content Lion, because content is king, its mission is to be the ultimate replacement for all of these companies that were left without product after in the wake of Oracle's discontinuing of Oracle Content Management. So that's where we're getting our start, and it's a really nice shot the arm for a validated market with a product that is well defined. And because of the first business and its great relationship with Oracle, we were able to convince them that having all of those customers come to us and not to Adobe or one of their other competitors would be much better in their interest. And so they've been very enthusiastic about us taking that business over. So that's how we met SmartCat, because we had a very tight timeline to build a product. We don't have infinite bucks, and we needed to have top tier talent at a price that we could afford as a startup. And that is when we started looking around, and that's how we found SmartCat. I'm sure we'll talk more about that process and decision making, but Content Lion was born there, and so now we are rapidly coming to the end of 2025 when Oracle will finally pull the plug. We will have a Day of the Dead party, you should come, and that's when we will be able to capture that entire market, and that's what we're typically do. So nice to meet you.
Thanks, David. Joe, go with that.
Okay, my name is Joe Enzminger. I came to know Content Lion as head of infrastructure for a small startup here in Austin called Vantage Discovery. Before that, I was the CTO of a gaming company called Exacta Systems, which sold at Churchill Downs. The company was the Kentucky Derby in 2023. So I joined a startup about 6 months after that in March of 24 that just recently got acquired by Shopify in was this March of 24. So been on quite the ride. I met or got exposed to SmartCat through Vantage Discovery. Vantage is Discovery is a service platform. We're a search engine doing AI-powered search and discovery, and got associated with Content Lion because they were the company that basically built our platform from the ground up to help us get boost. So we engaged them at the beginning of the life of Vantage Discovery to start our platform build that ended with an acquisition by a great company. So a big success story. And I'm an engineer, so I've had from a, because David might be kind of looking at it from the business perspective. I could kind of describe it from what the engineering experience was like, what it was like to work with SmartCat.
Yeah, that was my idea, to have like founder and business perspective, also engineering perspective, and maybe I can jump in as a company that is partnering with company that is building a product. So my name is Nenad Bozic. I'm CEO of SmartCat, a company based in Serbia, with two founders here on US soil in Florida and San Francisco. So US was always interesting market for us, and we worked with many clients here. We started 10 years ago as data engineering and AI focused company. We evolved through time, and we figured out with this AI hype and to expand our services to offer to build full products and use this heritage of AI and data to build it more efficiently, because most of our engineers are machine learning engineers, really familiar with code generation assistants, and we think that we are well equipped to build products and look at it from every angle. So maybe let's start with the first step. Maybe Dave, for you, you have idea. You came to us well prepared with things on paper, and we needed to evaluate it. But between having an idea and putting stuff on paper, what is your process? How you go? What is thinking process when you decide, hey, this is good opportunity to build? Pilot research, maybe.
Yeah. So for us, what happened was, we saw this immediate void in the market as Oracle was exiting. And it was not our first decision to say, well, let's just go build our own product. That's obviously not what we thought. We were a service company, and we thought, well, we'll just build a package to migrate this install base from an Oracle product to a non-Oracle product. However, where this got interesting is, we did what anybody does when they're looking to buy software. We pull up Gartner and search the Magic Quadrant, and started with the companies that were highest and to the right and started working our way down. And we found that there were three problems with every single one of those solutions. One, they were built on Krampus technology. Anybody who wants to get excited about PHP and COBOL, good luck, but that was not where we wanted to take our customers. So Krampus technology was rule number one to get them out. Take those off the list. Number two, most of them were half a solution. So you needed at least two of them, and then buy them, integrate them together, and that was a replacement for what Oracle had been doing. And number three, each of those individual components cost 2 to 6 times what Oracle had been charging. Now, I don't know about you, but I always thought Oracle was like the highest price company out there. Turns out they're pretty cheap. So we sat there and said, my gosh, there's a huge ceiling for nobody who's kind of put together these pieces just so, and no one is doing it with any modern technology. Everybody's sitting around with Krampus technology. So maybe we could build our own, and maybe we could be the viable solution for this niche of a $14 billion market. Because this is a huge market for these types of platforms, and even the Oracle's was just a slice of the slice. So it was with that contention that we decided we should go build a product. And so that was what we did, and it was as far as we got before we met SmartCat, because we knew what we wanted. We also, of course, went to Oracle, explained what we were going to do, and be sure that we weren't going to have any conflicts with them. And they agreed and said that that was going to be great. So once we did all of that, that was really the pre-work that we needed to do to get ready to go. And then from there, it was about getting the funding, the capital to be able to start, which we were able to secure pretty quickly. And then that's what we turned to.
I always look at this phase as a two-step process. You have business due diligence, where you do what you explain, but also technical due diligence. Is it something feasible? Can we do something? You said that you were a founding engineer for a startup. What would be advice for technical people who are pulled in to found a company? How to provide value in these early stages and how to navigate in the right technical fit for next solution?
That's a great question. I think there are two pieces of advice that I'd agree. Key. One is you have to be able to move very quickly. So you have to go from your idea to something that you can use to prove your market very quickly. You have to also do something that's a little bit in competition, which is you have to plan for success. So that means that you have to make sure you're spending the time to build the foundations of your technology in such a way that if you do grow or if you do need to scale quickly, you're not saddled by decisions made in haste. And so those two things are tough. And where I think founding engineers come into play, it's good engineers know how to, A, both balance those two could be priorities. B, they have the experience to kind of see around the corners, that to know, and this is a decision I can put off, or this is a decision or a problem we need to deal with right now. And I think that's the key. I think one of the things that it's pretty apparent working with SmartCat has been that their leadership team has some of this insights and has the capabilities that help you make sure you're looking at the right decisions, or you're looking at the problems through the right lens as you account them as you're sorry.
I think this is in common for both of you. When we first spoke with David, 3 weeks after, I think we are starting working together. 2 months after, you already started meeting the team, and we are working together. But if I'm not mistaken, we were not the first choice. So I wanted to ask, from business perspective, how do you choose? What are your values, or what are your criteria, or for founders out there, what would be your advice when you decide to co-create with an external company? How to do this? How to select?
Yeah, so this was a difficult decision for us. And I think to back up a step, I had been involved with software and software development through our other company for 20 years. And most of that time has been, well, let's get 3 guys, let's get around, with a couple of laptops, let's start banging away at the keys, and let's start building software internally ourselves and get a product going and do the classic, couple guys in the garage type situation. And, it's really hard to scale when you're doing that, right? It's hard to make sure that you've got support and service and, marketing and everything else done when you're kind of involved in that. And so we took the different approach because we knew we had very little time and we had a very lucrative opportunity, and we just needed to hit the gas. So throw away that idea of like 3 guys in a garage trying to bootstrap a company. And instead, what we needed to do was build an enterprise startup from the beginning. And we had a couple other advantages, which is, when Oracle made this decision to exit, they left in the wake of that decision a lot of people who were freed up, who had been involved in making that product. So we recruited the general manager to be our advisor, and we asked him, what are all the things that you wish you had done differently? And he gave us a list, and it was just a fantastic list of everything that was a bottleneck, choke point, engineering pinch point, quality problem, point of failure, and we took all of that in stride. And so we were able to really give that to a team. But we needed a team that wasn't coming together and normalizing and installing their infrastructure and getting rid. We needed to just be like, go. And so this was a big decision for us. We had to decide what firm we're going to use. And I just came at this decision from a standpoint of, I am completely capable of making this decision, right? I mean, every salesperson's going to tell you that they're great, okay? Everyone's going to have case studies of the best thing that they did, okay, great. They all have got really smart engineers. They're all from different offshore. You can pick your own continent, right? Like grab a dart and throw it. You can go to Eastern Europe, you can go to India, you can go to South America. You can pick any of them. They all are great. So how the hell do you figure this out? Because here's the problem. If you make the decision and you chose poorly, you are burning through at least half of whatever you borrowed before you realize it. And so whatever your equity in the company is, you might as well divide by 2 when you make the decision to switch. the only thing that's worse than that is sticking with a bad choice and then realizing that you're just riding that one into the ground, right? So this is, as a founder, probably one of the most important decisions you need to make. I had to admit that I was incapable of making it because I really couldn't see past the veil of what is it really like to work at these companies. So I did the one thing that I thought I could do that actually worked, which is I just asked other successful entrepreneurs, what did you do? And that's really where the story gets funny, because I asked tons and tons of entrepreneurs, and I heard all these different horror stories about, oh, these guys didn't work, and then these guys were okay, and this guy, and then I was coaching my son's robotics team, and there's another dad who is a really successful guy. He's actually, works with Joe over at Vantage, and he's the CEO of Vantage, and I said, hey, Lance, you've been all done a whole bunch of companies. What's worked for you in terms of this? Did you build your own team here in Austin? Did you build something and sitting in Silicon Valley where he's from? Or did you go with A's? And he gave me his life story of all of his different firms, and I'll net it out. I'm on this stage tonight because I picked the one that ultimately was the one that worked for him. And so I worked at SmartCat. And so that was how we made the decision. And it's a bet the company will, that is the hardest thing to do. And so, but what was interesting from, I think, SmartCat's perspective is it's very little to sell, because the decision was made, the research was done, and we were off to the races, because we knew exactly what we wanted. We were able to validate by talking to customers of theirs ahead of time. And so I went in and saying, this is what I want to do, and let's find a way to do it. So it was definitely probably a different kind of sale for you on that. So.
But what are your top 3 red flags for the other company that you were evaluating?
You've got to make sure that people have built something like what you want to build. And so the nice thing for us is we knew exactly what we wanted to build. I mean, we had it already sitting there from Oracle, and we had their blessing to build a carbon copy of their product. So that is very rare, but we knew what we wanted. And so when we went out and looked at everything that every entrepreneur had told us was, their good experiences with the development partner, we were able to very quickly realize, well, that those guys would be great for us, but they're really good at IoT. That's not what we need here. These other guys are really good. They're for embedded mobile apps, and that's not what we need. Or, what we need is enterprise software with AI. And when we looked at what Vantage was building and what SmartCat was capable of doing, Mortgage Trapper, was this wasn't new to these guys, right? This is what they were building. And we just realized that what we were asking for was not going to, be splitting the atom from state to date elsewhere.
Nice. And Joe, Vantage has chosen a bit of a different tactic where you have leadership team here in US, and then you're using us to accelerate the development. Can you talk a bit about this communication between two continents, cultural differences, organizing everything to really move in the right direction?
Sure. So a couple things, just to echo something you said. I mean, I think, look at it but the same way we look at hiring engineers and employees. So we're looking for talent. We're looking for experience, and we're looking for domain experience. I think that's kind of the same rubric that you use for finding engineering talent. Works when you're trying to think about teams that you're going to hire overseas. From a process perspective, we started out with the SmartCat team built most of our platform to start. The idea to have U.S. leadership leading SmartCat was sort of the second step. It was the evolution of the process. So to be clear, you guys delivered the platform, and we kind of started to assume it. There are a couple things that I think have been pleasant surprises. I mean, working overseas from the U.S. difficult. There are time zone challenges. A lot of companies look at Central American companies simply because the time zones are the same. There are two things that I think have really made this collaboration successful. One is you guys have been willing to go out of your way to make sure you're available, even when it's kind of off hours. So, when we're working, a lot of your team's working very late when we're having to work long hours, and that that flexibility on your side goes a long way toward making sure the communications, because Slack messages are getting answered. It very much is. I mean, we're all remote workers now, or a lot of us are. So we are very much approaching, hey, it's just a remote work relationship. It's not an overseas work relationship. And I think that's been a real key. And then the second part is you guys have the SmartCat team has processes in place. We're not inventing new things. And so we are able to go to sleep at night knowing that the work is continuing. And we know we'll wake up in the morning, there'll be a handoff where we can kind of start to do this work. And I think that has been great. We also have, our company, it's a little unique. We had the team in Serbia. We also have a team of Yahoo engineers that are from India. And so our company was working 24 hours a day. So at every point in the process, every point in the process, somebody's away working. And it was even in there's cross collaboration there too. So the teams in India were collaborating with our SmartCat engineers, very successful. And then I think that was a key to success from within.
I can maybe share our point of view from Europe when we are fired. Something has changed during Corona probably. Most of the engagement in Europe were staff augmentation. They're basically, you were not involved in product co-creation part. And me, Mafia, and other founders of SmartCat did all it. That's why probably we chose the AI and machine learning, because machine learning you cannot do without understanding business problems. But something is changing right now. It's you have more talent on the market. Everybody is building software, so staff augmentation or being just people for hire is not enough. So we really for both of your companies, it was really valuable to let us really be involved in this process, and I think this was focal point to make collaboration really do.
Yeah, I think that is an important point to make. There, several models you can run. One is, we're going to throw requirements over the law, and they could be worked on, and then they're going to come back. That is very much not the model we're working on. It's been very collaborative, very much, day to day. The teams collaborating, teams adjusting, teams being very flexible. I mean, we're a little too close, but I mean, we in the journey from startup to acquisition, we zig and zag dramatically several times, and that is hard on people and teams. And what's amazing is that even in the midst of all that, we were still able to keep a significant difference.
Yeah, David said that they exactly knew what they are building, and it is still happening because we are in early stages, but eventually we will need to figure out additional features and innovate. So maybe this is an interesting topic for me. Both of you are working for innovative product companies, but also you had firm deadlines. Vantage has the GA projected, and you're racing till December when pretty much Oracle is killing its own. How to do this trade-off to build core product, but also have something innovative which will end up in quadrant, the Gartner quadrant, or be new thing on the market. How to have this discipline to be laser focused and really say no to additional features which are distractions potentially.
I don't like to say no.
That's why we keep guessing.
No, saying no is definitely not something I'm good at, and I suck at, to tell you the truth. So I don't say no a lot, but what's really great is the collaboration that we have, and to echo something Joe said, the processes that you had at SmartCat are key, and that depth means that on day one, we did something that we could have never done on our own, which is, we had I think we started on day one, week one, we had 10 people who were immediately running with a process that they were all trained on. That was not unusual to where we were turning on our own, accounts to just make sure we had our own, ways of tracking everything. But you guys gave us the turnkey way to just press the gas. So there was no wasted time of, that people talk about in organizations, you go from kind of like this sort of chaos of everybody kind of, norming and getting normalized, and then people start, storming, and, then they start getting more and more organized. We didn't have to go through all those early stages of chaos. We just locked and loaded and we were in. Now, prioritization is difficult because we have already changed our mind on what's the most important priority at least 4 times. And it's because of changes in marketplace or who the early adopter customers were and what they had to have early on, or ideas that we had to go and deviate from just being clone copy of another product to our own original unique idea of what the market needs. And in all 4 of those pivots, what's been really nice is that you guys have already set up a flexible architecture so that we weren't this monolithic solution where we couldn't make bids. And I think that's been really right, because we made tough calls. We've had to make trade-offs. We had to make those decisions. But I think flexibility and agility have been at the heart of what you've had for us, and that's allowed us to change the prioritization. It's never easy, right? And I mean, I think I'm as guilty as anybody of being more of a salesperson than a developer. And so as soon as a customer says it needs to be in blue, I'm like, hey, SmartCat, it's got to be blue. And and so that's I'm more prone to doing those things. And so it is great to have an architecture that allows us to be able to do that.
Yeah, Joe mentioned it at the beginning. You said we need to build fast, but also to build something that eventually, when you plan to scale, you can do it. You went a step further, and from engineering perspective, you organized the core team and the innovation team, right? Can you talk a bit more about that? Because this allow Vantage platform to be both innovative and to support really high scales of load.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that talks to the diversity of your team. So we had, in our infrastructure, sort of the typical software engineering disciplines. So we had, back-end server engineers, we had UI engineers, but this is, the new age of AI. So we needed ML engineers, we needed people who understood AI. We needed people working on research. And so one of the things we utilized SmartCat D4 was helping us build a research team that could run some of these academic ideas to ground, build solutions or prototypes of solutions that we could actually test and deploy. And that was super successful. And so we, a number of the things that made Vantage Discovery magic, came out of the collaboration with SmartCat. They weren't necessarily great ideas built in the US. They were great ideas built on research and finding and learning. It was happening here. Super effective.
Just back to the partner question. Me and Mate, when we opened up a company 10 years ago, we were flying all over the place and meeting people in person. And somehow during Corona, when everybody got used to remote work, we started starting relationships online, but it never worked quite good as when you have these first meetings on site. What do you think? How this week that you spend in first month in ISA, how valuable was that, especially with cultural differences and understanding and communication later on?
So, one of the things I think that's really important is when you're creating a relationship like this, I did not want to create a relationship that was the same as maybe, if I was a manufacturing firm and I was buying parts to assemble together, I don't think I have a really tight relationship and know all about the names of the kids and all the things that of all people who work at the supplier factory, right? That's not the relationship that you need when you're building software like this, because everybody has to care. And the only way you're going to get people to care is if you invest the time to get to know every single one of them. So there's one guy who really likes drums. And I was like, hey man, like when I come out to Serbia, like I either want to fly drums with you or I want you to upload some footage into our content solution because I want to see some of your drums fly around Novi Sad. And so, or other things that are just small connection points, because when you do things like that and you build that kind of camaraderie, it translates into all kinds of wonderful, like first, it's a nice work experience, right? Because you they know you, you know them, and working together all the time. But I think the other thing about going out and meeting people is they're just going to realize that going the extra mile will get noticed. And case in point, we were in the third sprint of our product, and one of the UI UX developers realized that there was just a few things that were kind of annoying about the product, that the old product, and they weren't anything major. It was just remembering, whether a setting like a configuration panel was sticking out or whether it was minimized. And the last time you were at the site, what was it like? And you just said that, yeah, I fixed it so that whatever it was before, it's that way again. And those kinds of little things, they add up. You multiply that in every sprint from every developer, and you get one of those from every developer every sprint. Suddenly you got 10 little things that are better every 2 weeks, and over 16 sprints, that's 160 things that are better about your product, and all sorts of small ways. And those little gains matter a lot. So getting back to your question, where you go out and you meet everyone face to face, and you break bread and you have fun, and you get to know all those things, you build that camaraderie, you build that trust, and it becomes a lot of fun. So yeah, it is a sweet time, and it's a beautiful town. So Noe Side is a great place. There's an amazing festival in summer called Exit that's held in like this ancient castle, and it's like a Lollapalooza of Serbia. So if you're coming out, I'll see you out there in July. We're going to be that. Let's go to Exit.
Yeah, I think two things are really important. One thing is to have drinks and go outside of the work and create this relationship. Second thing I really think is important is to have your first fight. Because without first bite, you don't know, you're in honeymoon phase and everything is working. But after first bite, when you install this, I think this is moment of growth. And you mentioned that we worked really hard on Vantage, that we had off days and on days, and I think this created really this transparent environment where we can really talk. From previous career maybe. Have you evaluated other remote teams or their countries that are easier to work with, time zones? What would you say from engineering perspective? It doesn't need to be like separate company, maybe even remote group of people. What would be your preference or maybe advice for others who are trying to find out engineering teams?
Well, up until this experience with SmartCat, I had not had successful relationships for not that and for the.
But you had experience.
I had some experience. Definitely had the experience. I think some of the things that you mentioned, like how you engage, how you figure out, I think what made it work early on and helped in the outsourcing movement, or if you want to call it that, was that it was cheap. And so there was low risk, right? Hey, we can throw some dollars at this, it doesn't work. But when you're starting a company, into your point, it's not low risk, no matter actually good. And so it's either the time, the market is the key. And so I had not been able, up until part of this was also the advent of remote work. Up until COVID, remote work was still an iffy thing. We were all in the office. That was the way you collaborated. That was the way you worked. And then post-COVID, all of a sudden it became a lot more normal to work with teams remotely. And that made and the tools improved as well. So, Zoom, I don't think I'd heard of Zoom before COVID, so that certainly it became easier. What I'll say about, the success part of the relationship with SmartCat is, I think something, that David mentioned is the team aspect of it, that there really is trust there really is commitment, there really is ownership. It's not a transactional relationship. It's not everybody's invested in success, and I think that speaks to kind of how you guys lead your company. It's really the people you're working with. I got to the point with several of the people that work for SmartCat where I feel invested in their progress and their figures, and that's pretty rewarding. That's not something I expected.
But just to downplay it, we didn't invent silver bullet. We have bad experiences as well. I think a really huge part from our side is level of investment in the early days from Nigel and Lance, who flew here, who really spent a lot of time speaking to us. Also, you, David, who you came to Novi Sad, you spoke with people, you invited them here. So 6 of us were here in January on launching party. We brought the engineering team here to get to know Texas, to get to know Austin, to get to know Zine here, and this really helps.
You know, there's one other thing that I was surprised by, and that was I assumed that anybody with an outsourced development model did the same thing, which is that, you know, they get a project, they win it, they go to the local university, they just go, you, let's go, and like bring them in and then contract them, and if they lose the deal, all those people are gone, kind of like an ad agency. I just assumed that was like the way you go, because, you know, that would protect the cost if you were in an outsourced business. I didn't know. I figured it's a tough business, you know. What was really interesting and a surprise to me at SmartCat was it's not how it worked. They, everybody who was on our project was somebody who had been working for SmartCat. Is like in the U.S. we call them a W-2. They were not contractors. They were people who'd been trained in the process, who understood the things that they did and the ways that they did them, the documentation standards, and all of that came in, and that made a huge difference. And so there have been times where SmartCat has needed to grow because we're like, well, we need to flex even further, and you just haven't had people like they're really transparent, like, hey, we are going to grab some contractors and bring them in. That's fine. They were great for a while, but we have gotten fantastic work done because these are people who are employees of your company who come to the project integrated into a team, not just a collection of individuals who just become like brought in to do their session thing, you know, and that's the huge.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. I think one more thing is really important to somehow manage to create from this relationship to build for building a product to be shared responsibility. Usually, companies from our end do this again stuff augmentations where pretty much our job is to find a guy or a girl who will work here, and we don't have any interest for product success. I think this is from service-based business really off, and I think this industry is maturing and changing, and you need to invest in a product, even help create some kind of opportunities and connections, or you really speak out loud in case you think something is off. But how to achieve that? You're a remote team, so probably you're used to remote work, but if somebody is sitting in an office, usually brainstorming sessions are happening, bonding and everything, and then you have a remote team which has only 30% of the context, and we are lacking maybe your office talks, how you got to a certain point. Do you have any advice, or have you talked with Tom, Nigel, and Lance how to achieve for us to be vested in your success?
And so we certainly, I'll start with, I feel like you were always acting like you were vested in our success. And I think that's part of the key to making this relationship work. But on the wider answer to your question, like, there's a bigger problem with working remotely, just even internally. And I'll give you an example of something that strikes me often. Like in the office environment, when 2 people are collaborating, everybody knows. You know they're in the conference room all day. In the remote environment, you don't always know. You don't always know when 2 people are on a Google Meet talking and coming up with the next great idea. And so a lot of times in remote environments, things drop in. Like you discover that, hey, this work has been going on, these decisions are being made. So we did spend a lot of intentional time trying to talk about how do we make sure that we minimize that drop, and not just for SmartCat relationship, but in Vantage in general. We didn't solve that problem completely. I think one of the things that we ran up against that speed bump several times over the course of our project. And I think the only thing I can say about it is that because of the trust and collaboration, it wasn't a destructive event. It wasn't the team fragments or people have hard feelings. It was, okay, we've discovered that there's this mismatch. We've moved over here, and the engineering team over here is feeling a little left behind, or sometimes the other way around. We worked through that stuff, and that's part of the process. Making sure that those lines of communication are open. I have the story, and this talks to cultural differences. I'll tell you. So, when we visited Serbia, or the last trip anyway. We were going to go to there with the team, and everybody's back in their backpacks and heads downstairs. And Tal and I, are the other U.S. leader at Vantage, got caught on a quick conversation. So we're about 10 minutes behind. We walked downstairs about 10 minutes later, and there are 25 people standing in the rain waiting for us. And I mean, we were up there for a good 15, 20 minutes, like ever so. And I said, "Hey guys, like, you got to tell us if you're standing in the rain. We have to be confident enough in our relationship between these teams that if something doesn't feel right, don't defer, or fix it. Like, come grab us." And since that conversation, we got a lot of interesting kind of like, okay, you said, tell us when there's a problem, and we work through those things. And I think that's an important part of the collaboration process.
Yeah, that from our standpoint, I think involving us into explaining why certain things are done certain way, and giving us perspective of the product, where you're heading with it. Also from business standpoint, it's really valuable. Even though we are creating technology, it's really important to understand what are your business goals, because it is really influencing our decisions, some of our decisions. You're really vocal on our dailies, demos and everything, and you are motivating and cheering. I mean, when I got to know you, I think it's your natural way of communication. But can you share a bit how to motivate remote team, how to bring them up when they're down?
So there's one thing that I think is a secret, and it's not that I think is the one that if you took one thing away, this is my one thing that I love, which is, as a leader, as an entrepreneur, the hardest thing that you have, the most limited and scarcest thing, is of course time. And so it is very, very difficult to kind of constantly be advocating your message, because it's just a giant waste of time. If you're constantly telling people the same thing over and over and over again, you're losing, because you just only have so many hours a day, and you're wasting your time capital. So about 3 years ago, I realized that the most important thing I could do at my other company was spend my time recording training materials on a great learning management system. So I'm not talking about like really boring learning management about like, heat your hands to yourself and don't say mean things and blah, blah, blah. I'm talking about, how do you succeed in this business? Why does this business exist? What is it that you can do every day to be successful? And these are, and like the amount of topics I've been able to think of, is legion for that business. And so I wind up spending almost all of my time now just working on that type of material for Motive, our services business. And what I think was the key success factor with SmartCat is I can remember one day about 3 or 4 weeks before we were about to start, I realized that I had 9,000 things I needed to do that day, but I decided to take the entire day and just record a 10-part series on each one being like 2 to 3 minutes long, but a 10-part series on all the different topics around why we were building this company, geared exclusively for the SmartCat development team, so that maybe, just maybe, they would watch these things and they understand why we're making so many strange decisions, right? Like, I'll give you an example. We needed to explain to these guys, why the hell are we building everything on Oracle Cloud infrastructure and not on Amazon or Google or Microsoft Azure? Like, why would we pick this obscure other infrastructure platform and build that? Well, there's a good reason for it, and we went through that. But there was a bunch of things like that. And I knew these were going to be friction points where any developer who didn't have context would be like, I've got a client in some data. Why are they doing these things? And so I build that, and what's really cool is we use, by the way, this great product that's pretty cheap called WorkRamp. Highly recommend WorkRamp. And I put it out there, and I was like, well, let's find out if they actually watch any of this stuff. And I was delighted to find out that the adherence and the amount of people who watched all of the videos all the way through to the end, and you could even see like whether they watched it or whether they just kind of skipped forward. everybody from the SmartCat team watched it, and we started out with a momentum where all weird things we were doing with this company, everybody understood why we were doing the weird things. I didn't have to repeat myself over and over and over again. And instead, it was there. And then as the team grew, and we doubled the team, and then we tripled the team in terms of size, they all just jumped in and, were able to watch the recording, and bang, we had a team that was on the on-ramp and ready to go. And I think that is, to me, the number one thing that we did to start the relationship off in this virtual world that you all live in now. Before we out and decided to do it, we did that.
So this was also test. How was it? How it was VR?
Yes, and you guys passed. Yeah.
Great. Since we are not that big of a crowd, maybe we can make this interactive. Can I invite you to ask questions? You have here business perspective of a founder, engineering perspective. I can bring a perspective of some company that is joining founders to build products. Yep. Let's do it like this.
Oh, yeah.
Go for it, Larry.
Larry. Yep. No, that's this is beautiful, and you can see how the partnership between all three of you is working tremendously. I think empathy is very big. He has to represent a lot of your extension team now. You mentioned, David, you mentioned turnkey when it all started, but you just talked about that effort that you took to provide, that. And that was really going to be one of my questions today, was how much free work did you have to do for these guys before you got the contract signed, and then before collaboration even started happening? But you just mentioned that. So maybe we could talk a little bit about, do you learn anything, those videos that David provided, and is that something that has kind of made it into your processes?
Okay. Yeah, different clients. So this pre-sales period for us is different for different clients. Having David talk to Lance and having this personal referral helped a lot. But sometimes what is really good is that AI is evolving, and you can really prototype in a matter of days or weeks. Of course, AI is not producing a production-ready software, but at least we can, in this pre-sales phase, at least prototype something out really fast. And I think this is really good step for building this relationship and trust. And I would say it's a matter of week. Sometimes we did do it free of charge. Sometimes we realized that this is more complex, and we have discovery workshop, which we do along with clients, where we are listening to them, gathering requirements, and then prototyping. So it depends. I think with Nigel Nigel worked previously, and Nigel from Vantage worked in Pinterest, and he was really experienced setting up remote relationships. So out of the gate, he said, let's start with this, so we didn't have too much of these precepts. So it depends.
Yeah, no, I think that totally makes sense. And how, for each of you, Joe and David, how long did it take for you to be convinced to go visit Serbia, or is that something that you knew was probably pretty important to you, Joe?
Nenad was particularly emphatic that, like, you got to do this. And I was like, well, whatever. The worst things in my life, the trip to Eastern Europe, right? Much worse. Anyway, so I just figured we would go through it, but I didn't. My expectation of what it would do for us was pretty low, and it massively exceeded. Actually, because it was fun, but because it truly was productive. To get to your earlier question of what's the pre-work involved, my situation was a little bit different from Vantage's. I didn't have a new idea. I had an existing idea, and I needed execution. But what I knew very, very well is in every one of my requirements for the next 6 months, I knew exactly what my business situation is, who my target market was, what they needed, and how I get there. I had all of that because I was, I had the answer key ready to go. So what I needed, what I couldn't bring to the table was, sure, I can read a book on agile product development. Anybody can do that. But that doesn't make you a Scrum Master, right? Like that doesn't mean that you now have everything flowing in terms of
how you're going to set up your sprints and your research and your spikes and your epics and all these other jargon terms about development. I needed somebody who just was like, yeah, we have all that, like it's here. And so that's what SmartCat did. So in our first week, we met for 8 hours a day for 5 years. It was just like surge, right? That surge of that momentum helped us get all the organization so that very first sprint was at least doing something. And so, it is a little bit of a snowball that rolls downhill, because when you are at cold start, just trying to get your arms around what it is that you want to do takes time. And then you feel like you're planning to plan and you're like, oh my God, can we just get going? But there is really that period of time that shrunk down for us. And I was, of course, super anxious to get moving. So I would say we called it Sprint Zero when we first got started. We didn't produce anything, but we did kind of lay the groundwork. And then from there, Sprint One was real. Like we had real stuff. 2 weeks later, so
Fully aligned on the problem.
yeah.
That's
And then what we did was we gave them a lot of latitude to say, hey, if there's things that we can't see, we're going to trust that you guys are building infrastructure that we can see, and that's okay. And we'll get to the sprint review. And if you're doing things right and you're laying the foundations that we need, we know we just believe that we'll go faster. And that turned out to be true. And I think what was really nice is it took some nerve on our side to be like, don't just pressure them to see something on screen just for the sake of seeing something on screen, feeling better. It's only week 4, like just chill and like give these guys some time. And so they really did it. So, I think we're in sprint 5 and we're like, wow, it's all real now. Everything is here. We can see it. We've got the basic foundation of this product. We're 10 weeks into this.
great stuff. And Joe?
So my perspective, I joined the company midstream, and so they were 9 months in when I joined. And so what I would say is my perspective was a lot of those foundational pieces were in place, and I think that's what I was looking for. Like when you drop into something like this, not only is the product there and moving quickly, but are the sort of underpinnings of it and there and ready to go, ready for growth, and that. For the most part, they kind of go to the checklist and see it. These foundational aspects exist and we're ready to build on.
Well, I can see that as an engineer, it had to be pretty tough.
Anyone else got some questions, Barry? Yes. Oops.
Working.
Yeah, I wanted to cover one more topic, budget and quality. So budget is one aspect, but how, I know that we talked a lot that we have this 10 level system in SmartCat of engineers, and what Nigel told me and Tom and you is that our quality of engineer is one level below San Francisco or Bay Area levels. So how do you think about budget and quality when you're working with remote teams, and can you do something about it, to get more quality to work together on getting more quality?
Well, so I guess I'd put that a slightly different way. That's more of a level setting of our expectations. And so it's not so much that the engineers that you were providing us were of lower quality than what we'd expect in the US. It was just that our expectation wasn't aligned at the beginning. And it was just pure communication. And once you understand that, and you say, okay, now that we understand, we were asking engineers to do things maybe they're not prepared to do. And that was the only part of that was problematic. It wasn't like an indictment of the team. It was more like, oh, but this is an insight. We need to make sure that we're developing, that we're looking and we're making the right assumption about. I said earlier, the rubric, talent, experience, and domain experience. We have to make the right assessment and then manage to that. And I think that was the only insight there was was making sure we were doing that correctly. And I think, you know, to give you an example, we came to you guys and said, hey, you know, from what we're seeing, it would be helpful to have a senior technical leader in Novi Sad that can make decisions that we trust or that we can have confidence in, and we don't see that right now. You guys fix that. I mean, so that's part of that process, is just making sure you're communicating that. I don't know if it was a trade-off between cost and quality from our perspective. That wasn't really what we were looking at. We were just looking at an expectation level set so that we knew how to manage. And I think again, the refreshing part about it is we didn't get pushback, we got solutions. And I think that's what you're looking for in the hierarchy.
Which is back to the topic of communication. I think you need to create a transparent communication area of safe zone where you can really speak about it. One interesting insight which I realized when we were talking about quality is that in Austin Bay Area, probably every engineer wants to be to build products. So competition and talent density is really higher than the rest of the world. And you said your expectation was probably off because you're in an environment where there are a lot of great engineers. And for us, having Mikhailo and Matija, Mikhailo is principal data scientist there in Airbnb and one of our shareholders at SmartCat. Matija worked for Google for previous 5 years. For us, this is really important because we are having this insight and a glance into quality of engineering here in US, and we are trying to get to that level with people from SmartCat. David,
Yeah, I'm here. So it's a little bit harder for me to say, you know, SmartCat versus another firm because I don't have any experience with another firm. But I do have a benchmark between the product that we originally had from Oracle versus the product we're building, SmartCat. And so one of the big advantages early on was we recruited the general manager from Oracle that said, what did you do that you wish you hadn't done, right? And he was able to give us that list. We took that to you and said, one of the things I remember early on was this guy had said, I wish I'd written the entire back end in Rust. Man, if only it had been Rust, we'd have done so much better, it would have been so much faster. And so I took it to you guys and you were like, absolutely not. I'm doing it in Rust. There's no Rust programmers anywhere in the world. There's like esoteric and like, it's like free guys. What do you want us to do? Which was great because I appreciate the transparency. And that was pretty much true. Everybody I talked to. But we substituted that with Go, and Go's been great. But from a quality standpoint, you know, the other thing that we did is since we were building from the ground up, we had at least an opportunity to build the right technology for the job and build in a clever way. And the benchmark is there. So we were able to do benchmark testing of just raw throughput on, you know, existing Oracle product versus the product built by SmartCat, and we're at 7x. So we could go 7 times faster on our product than what Oracle would do. And, you know, we're using the same infrastructure that Oracle is using, so that's where the product is located. And so that really gets to the quality of the engineering that we're doing. We're 7 times better. Because we've learned some lessons from their sins of the past, we also have had no legacy code, and you've built the right way. So that's my best quality mark. You know, I'd say, you know, you can measure quality another way, just in terms of defects. And, you know, I think in an agile process, defects are expected. You know, if you don't have any defects, you're not going fast enough. Yep. You know, and I think that's important to understand. But it's the responsiveness, and we've seen that as well. You know, that you know, the defects are there and then they're gone and they're resolved. And so that's been great. I guess the last thing I'll say is I don't know if I've ever told you this, Ned, but somewhere along the way, as I was trying to figure this all out, someone told me about the ethos of Eastern European coders. And you heard this? So, you know, 50 years ago when computers were new, things were done on punch cards. You know, in Eastern Europe, behind the Iron Curtains, they didn't have as much access to, you know, to computers. So someone might get 1 hour of compute time and they had the whole rest of the week to think about what it is that they would actually code in that 1 magic hour that they had. So the efficiency and the idea of just getting your code winnowed down to absolutely the essentials so that it's just as few lines as possible to get the most amount of performance, so that when you got that 1 hour, bang, you did it. Well, that was 50 years ago, but those people wound up becoming professors who kind of, have passed down that kind of that ethos of like that super hardcore efficiency drive to be most elegant, the fewest blinds, the most salability, and make the most out of what you have. And I don't know, I kind of feel like it's there. I mean, I see that in the 7X performance improvements. And so, there is this drive to think very deliberately and not just hack, and I think that to me always represents what I've seen over my 20 years at services, the difference between just an okay coder who's just hacking a problem to get it done and an elegant person who's really building something insane.
Yeah, there is a really nice documentary in Serbia where we couldn't import computers in 90s because it was really rough, and then engineers decided to build a pretty much group of enthusiasts decided to build their own computer, Serbian-brand computer called Galaxia or Galaxy, and they were professors for university, so they passed to students this love of hardware and software. So there are a lot of engineers who understand really what is happening below code, below on the lower level, which I think worked wonders in our engineering culture. What came to mind when you were talking in the introduction about budget, pretty much, that you have limited budget. Everybody has limited budget when they are a startup. And I think in US, stock options are fixed for that situation because you're paying expensive engineers half with money, half with shares, but essentially you as founder don't lose control of the company or 100% of the company. So maybe there is advantage in that you hire external team who is cheaper but yet larger, but on the same level of quality, but you then keep majority of stakes in the company as well as a founder. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Yep. And I would like to touch on AI because we talked about efficiency, and one way to be more efficient is to have larger team, but also from engineering standpoint, because everybody's talking that AI will enable one person startup who can just generate code and have product up and running in a weeks. What do you see on the ground?
Well, a couple things that are super relevant that happened to me recently. Firstly, we just got acquired by Shopify. The very first email from the CEO I received, as he sends one out every month, was basically saying, hey, using AI is no longer optional. It is a requirement. So we don't want you coding anymore as your first step. We want you using these tools that are out there, building your prototypes with AI. And you need to learn how to use this stuff or you're going to be gone. It's basically I'm summarizing the message. But this is a big company that is leaning in big to that. And then the second sort of first little retrospective on that is, as part of this acquisition, I had to be interviewed, and I had to do it in 30 years. And so I've never done a coding interview. I've never done big code or any of this. I had to do it. And one of the unique things about this company is that they said you can use any tool that's available to you, you could use. So I did the interview with AI, and it went from a problem to running code in 3.5, 4 minutes, and that's pretty impressive. That's what these tools do. The caution part of that is that AI, I look at, again, it's the same rubric, domain experience, talent, and experience. AI lacks domain experience, although I'm sure you could train models to sort of build that experience in. It also, it's improving orders of magnitude week over week, but you can't trust it. You have to have the experience to look at the work it did and put your own stamp on it. If you can't do that, we talk a little bit about building the foundation. You are going to miss some of these things that you were 100% right. So I think we still have to combine experience with the tools. but the tools are going to get better at a rate I don't think any of us are prepared to deal with. And I mean, it's a, and this is a sea change moment. I mean, would personal computers, the rotary telephones, like the modern, was my first technology experience. But you know, going through personal computers and the internet and the mobile phones, all these revolutions, this is 1000x or maybe amazing.
And I think it's really important to understand how things are working under the hood. What we see, because we have software engineers, we have machine learning engineers. For software engineer to generate some I don't know, code for machine learning, it's really hard. The machine learning engineers in SmartCat are generating front-end layout, and they are doing really good job because they understand how to use those tools, what is happening, and what to expect. The interesting fact is that Oracle Content Manager was built over what time?
It was built originally in 2014, 15.
How long was it built?
I mean, they were still building it last week.
We managed to put something in 4 months, right? And Mattia used and his team used a lot of AI.
Oh, you use
Your fake is much content plan and was built much more efficient using assistants.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing about AI that I think we're all wondering, right? Is that everybody knows and everybody's heard the stories of like every industrial revolution, you know, thing that happened is as soon as you made a tool, you didn't wind up getting rid of the people who did that job. You get rid of textile people. You made a tool, and now you need more textile people because there was a need to. It was even more profitable to make clothing, so everybody would go crazy and make even more clothes. And multiply that times everything. Everything was always like, we've made it cheaper, we've made it easier, we've added innovations, we've added tools. Now we need 4 people. And the big question is this one different, right? Is AI going to break this cycle of now that we've made knowledge workers, smarter because we can prompt with AI? Do we need less of them? Is this it? Like, are we just gonna be done because it will just wipe them all out? And I think I felt this, I'm sure you all felt this, like we all felt like, am I gonna have a job in 12 months? Like, is everything that I'm doing gonna be completely useless in 12 months because some kind of AI tool is just going to annihilate my entire industry? And I'm just gonna keep building right now on the idea that no, we're just gonna go faster, right? We're gonna do more things. We've all heard Ray Kurzweil say rate of innovation and change is growing exponentially. Well, and I remember hearing him in 2002 say, the amount of change between now and 2025 to be as much as 1900 to 2000. And I was like, damn, that's a lot. Which means that between 2025 and 2035, that's also the same as, 1900 to 2000. That's a lot too much. And I was like, that's not sustainable, whatever, you do that right. Sure. Maybe it does. But I think the thing is that, we're going to see that happen. I don't think any of us is going to become irrelevant. I think we're all going to wind up using these things to go faster, faster, and faster. And it's going to be pretty cool. It's going to be a little scary. Oh, fast is scary, but it's going to be cool.
Probably a few years ago, you will end up just doing content plan. Now Oracle has so many products which you can take ahead of life.
You already wonders, like how's that going to work? But we'll wait and see.
Yeah. Okay, guys. There is enough food and drink, so maybe we can take this more casually. Yeah. Let's do it.
So I'll just be very brief. Moved to Austin 6 months ago, and I'm graduating Northeastern as a CS graduate super young. And I've been doing software consulting for about a year now. We have a key day for me, it's team of 10, and you just touched up a lot on AI and all the software development things that are going on. With the current tools and the way Fantastic are progressing, with tools like Replit, recommended Replit, it's a really core company. And we use it for prototyping, they're great. One of our big competitors, we local ourselves as well. So the question is, with such fast advancements, what do you think the software consulting world will turn to in about like even a year? Because there's a million software consulting companies right now in US alone, and I'm convinced it'll die out like slowly and steadily because all these tools like Gruppet, they're replacing the need for most of them. It does do it perfectly, but for basic programming, it does it very well. And yeah, and not me being a co-founder of solid consulting firm, I'm a little concerned. Not concerned, but I'm thinking of how will we adapt to it and what will be the next step in the evolution. Will it be tools like Gruppet that will replace everything, or will it be like more niche-based approaches? So yeah. Yeah. So if I understand, your main question is, am I concerned about software consulting companies? And to be honest, of course I am. We don't know what will be in a year or a few years, but I think we as we were programming in Java, Python, whatever, we are now programming in with English language, and even though these tools are able to produce a lot of code, you need to trunk them in a way. Not everyone can do it, so it will require some kind of skills. And I think still next few years we will be prompting, generating, etc., etc. So I think we will have what to do. And also there are a lot of banks out there for kind of really old software. So I think those software need to be rewritten, re-engineered, whatnot. So there will be plenty of time, plenty of work to do. Plus, we are engineers who will adapt to new reality. This is at least my. You got.
Yeah, I would look at it like this. We don't know what the hell is going to happen, right? We have no clue. But if you're starting a new venture company, here's what the fundamental thing that you have to go to bed at night and think, and that is if you decide to bet on your own abilities, you have gone boldly, my friend. And if you are going to go boldly, have faith that no matter what happens, your desire to bet on your own abilities is going to pay off because you'll make the turn first. I mean, you're worried about it, so you're feeling vulnerable because you're, 10 guys or five people. If you're Accenture and you're 50,000 people and you need to make the turn, it's a hell of a lot harder of a turn. You're gonna make that turn faster, and you gotta believe that that's what's gonna happen. So it's gonna get crazy, right? That is actually good for you. That's your opening. So, somebody told me once that we all go through this thing in life, which is between ages 0 and 16, any technology that came out that's like, well, yeah, this is hard life. Like, I grew up with televisions, it's nothing special. I grew up with cell phones, it's nothing special. Anything that came out between 16 and about 30 is something where you're like, hey, this is a wonderful, exciting thing that I can use to disrupt and take my mark in the world, After about age 30, you're like, oh, hell no, we got to kill this shit, because it represents a threat to what you already built, and so it's the key to innovation right now is you can't, I'm over 30 in case you didn't know, you have to let go, you can't just be like, oh, I built this thing, we're building Content Lion, we're going to build this really great product, we're going to capture this market. But I also have to have in the back of my mind that 5 years from now, I might be putting this whole product in the ground because I'm building something else, and the pace of innovation is such that that new product I'll build in 1/10 the time, but it'll have 10 times the value of what I have now. I just can't be clinging to the past. Otherwise, you're the railroad when the car comes out, and you don't want to be the railroad. You always want to be the car, and so you'll get there. You will get there, no matter what happens.
I like the Kodak and digital camera analogy, but there, guys. My perspective on it is, the conversation I had with one of my good friends the other day was, there are not a lot of low-level assembler programs out there right now. There are not a lot of, they exist. I mean, when you need somebody to write low-level code, you can go find them. But most of that has been abstracted with tooling. I mean, you're using code to build that low-level code, and that's what AI is turning into, but it's 1,000 times more accessible. Meaning, we all know how to talk, we all know how to ask questions, we all know how to prompt. if you know the right questions, you're going to be able to build some pretty cool applications. And I think that's where the knowledge power is going to be going forward. Is not necessarily going to be, you know, who has this particular skill, who can write in, who knows how to write the right words on the terminal. It's going to be who knows how to ask the insightful questions to get at the key answers or the key implementations that you know to get. And that's going to be what coding is like pretty soon. It's going to be that part of it. And then also having experience to look at what it produces and say, this is good, or hey, we need to go back to the drawing board because this, you know, I didn't ask the question right. And that's going to be, that's going to be the skill of the future, I think. And that's where services companies are going to be super valuable, is if you know the right prompts, the right questions, the right directions to kind of prompt this intelligence. That's where the value is going to be. Thank you.
I had a question about any
So, maybe Weiss.
like. I had a question about. I mean, you're talking about using AI's work to process the success. None of these companies like which AI software are they using? There's only a few chopped odds of latest you making software you can use. So there's obviously like copyright ownership issues, US concerns about putting your data into their machine or maintaining access to the aforementioned machines. You know, as you scale out, you're becoming very dependent on this surface, and it's usually a beauty of coercion with that surface. Is that just, how does that play into your process, or is that a consideration?
I think that depends on your scale. I think even the bigger companies right now, they're thinking about that very hard. Like you go intellectual property issues, you go security, like then on the other end of the spectrum, you have the small companies that don't have a lot to lose, that are throwing everything in there and trying to move fast. Those are the types of problems that are having to be, we're all navigating through, right? I think those are absolutely things that are going to have to be resolved. And I mean, some of those are technical questions. Some of those are going to be legal questions. Some, there are a lot of domains. But one thing I could say is, the companies that don't start walking that direction are going to be, left fine. They're not going to have, very quickly, I think a group of 5 or 6 people can, in the next 24 to 36 months, will be doing the work of 100, a team that was 100 people before. And that's not just software engineering. That's the monitoring and operations and support and all these types of things. And in that environment, if you're not willing to move, somebody's going to come and replace you. Somebody's going to figure out how to win that business. So my dad was a software entrepreneur in the 1980s, and he will tell you this war story about how he had to hire the cops in London, and he had this little software company in Ann Arbor, Michigan. One of his guys took a floppy drive and took all the code and ran off to London to go start his own company and hire the cops and kick down the door and go grab the discs and be like, "I got you, Chuck." And it's this great badass story about one time my dad was on like a SWAT team guy, right? And my point by telling that is that we've always been at threat of having someone swipe our intellectual property. Is it easier now with an AI tool than it was when Chuck went and grabbed the disc from my old man? Maybe, on a larger scale, but we, in the middle of all that, we've had all this code running on Amazon and Google and Microsoft Azure. And, if you read the fine print, those guys could have swiped your stuff along the way, and they didn't. We were still here. So, yes, the AI tools could be, getting your code, learning from it, and evolving. But, that is part of what's going on. I don't think there's a concern that will happen where we'll lose trust in them, because the minute we lose trust in one of those, we just move to the next tool. And so I think that there's not an incentive for them to just pull a Chuck and swipe our IP. And if they're learning from it and getting smarter, well, a little bit of that is the rising tide lifts all boats,
To add that there are solutions in case, there are companies that are really type of security that don't want to share data with remote AI, but then you can install large language models and MLOs on your on-premise and really use it like that and be close to your environment. So it is always a trade-off. We as a service company ask about it and start talking about it. We can use SaaS-like solutions, and if our client is open to it, but if there is a really part case to use it on-prem in the closed, then we say that it is more effort, more money, and etc. But there you go. Anyone else? Or maybe you can do it with drinks and food. I wanted to thank all of you for coming and Joe David for joining me on stage. I hope we managed to tell some valuable experiences, and yeah, feel free to continue a conversation over there in more casual way. Thanks.